The first step in fretting is slot preparation. Take a piece of the fret wire you'll be using and hold it up to a fret slot depth gauge. The slots need to be this deep. The Stumac fret slot cleaning tool, Japanese fret slot cleaning saw, and a fret saw with a depth stop are all useful here. The tool clears out minor debris, the Japanese cleaning saw cleans more aggressively and can also deepen the slot, and the fret saw takes out a lot of material very quickly. Generally speaking, if the entire slot needs to be deepened, the fret saw with a depth stop is the best way to get there. If only part of the slot needs to be deepened, such as the ends, the smaller fret saw is the way to go. Check your work with the depth gauge to make absolutely sure the slot will accommodate the fret. This is tedious work, but not as tedious as installing a new fret and having to pull it out and do it all over again. Next is fret preparation. First, you'll have to be able to cut the wire. Most cutters will work fine for nickel-silver frets and even EVO, but for stainless steel, such as this Jescar 57110S wire, these 7-inch Starrett piano wire cutters with carbide jaws are a godsend. They'll save your hands a lot of wear and tear and are well worth the investment in the long run. After you've got a length of fret wire cut, it needs to be radiused. I buy fret wire in 1-pound rolls, which are pre-radiused to 9.5 inches, but since I compounded the fingerboard, I'll need frets of varying radiuses. To do that, you need to use a fret bender, which allows you to radius or straighten fret wire to whatever profile you need. I use the fret bender made by Guitar Builder Online on eBay. Using good lighting, check the fingerboard radius at all sections, and bend or straighten sections of fret wire to match it. Check the fret wire with a radius gauge to verify. Once the slots and the frets are prepped, it's time to install them. First, I take out some 192 gram strength hide glue, my brass glue pot from Music Caravan, and a fine-tip fine-line applicator bottle. Using a small funnel, I'll load about a teaspoon of hide glue granules into the fine-line bottle and enough water to cover them. In a couple minutes, the hide glue will gel with the water and will be ready to heat up in the glue pot, which is filled with just enough water to cover the bottom of the bottle. While the glue is heating up, I'll get my 1-ton arbor press from Harbor Freight onto the workbench. With the use of a neck rest caul and a customized fret caul, it works phenomenally as a fret press. I cut the shaft of the fret caul with an angle grinder to reduce the length and stuck a neodymium magnet and a drill stop onto it, which hold it securely against the ram of the arbor press while allowing it to rotate and move back and forth freely. Radius cauls are easily swapped out by loosening the 632 set screw, sliding the caul out, loading a new one in, and retightening. With the hide glue hot and the neck under the arbor press, we're ready to go. The fine line applicator makes saturating the fret slots with glue a breeze. Since hide glue is so easy to clean up, squeeze out isn't an issue and you can relax and apply it liberally. Line the fret tang up over the slot by hand and give it a light press to get it loosely seated in place. Line up the fret caul over the bead of the fret and press. You'll feel a prominent bump in the arbor press as you finally apply enough pressure to drive the fret tang into the wood. With the fret seated and glued, you can either clean up the squeeze out immediately with a damp paper towel or wait until the glue gels a bit when it will peel off easily and harmlessly. Hot hide glue is amazing for its fast setting time, which allows you to work quickly and seamlessly, and its complete safety for fingerboard finishes. Super glue is great and works fast too, but God forbid you get some accidental squeeze out onto a finished maple fingerboard. The minimal preparation for hot hide glue is a walk in the park compared to cleaning up that kind of mess. Next is to clip the fret ends. I do this after every single fret and before installing the next one. Once you get higher up the neck where the frets are closer together, leaving all the ends overhanging means your cutters won't have any room to work. As for the tool itself, I use a pair of Channel Lock 357 end nippers that I ground flush on the belt sander to a near razor edge. Surprisingly, they cut through stainless steel frets with no issues. When all the frets are installed and all the ends are clipped, it's time to edge them. I start freehand with an aggressive 10-inch flat file. You can hold the neck in a few different ways when doing this, but the important thing is that you have good control and enough force to grind the fret ends down. Hold the file at 90 degrees and keep going until the edges are flush with the sides of the neck. It also helps a lot to cut off and round over the tail end of the file with an angle grinder and a bench grinder so you don't accidentally gaff the headstock while you're working. With the preliminary edging out of the way, I recheck the neck to see if it's straight, as refretting can cause compression of the neck depending on the tang size. A flat straight edge checks the fret tops, but because those may be uneven, it's important to use a notch straight edge to check the fingerboard and get that as straight as possible. Once I've verified or corrected for straightness of the neck, I'll start leveling the frets with a full-length sanding beam. The goal is to stop just when the leveler sands all of the frets, so all the high and low spots are eliminated. I'll move the leveling beam back and forth along the string paths the same way I did when leveling the compound radius on the fingerboard. In good lighting, you'll be able to see where any high and low spots are, but for added visibility, you can mark the fret tops with a Sharpie. The leveling beam will take the Sharpie marks off the high spots immediately, while any low spots will be untouched. For isolated low spots on the outside ends of the frets, you can either level the rest of the frets down to the height of the low spot, or you can use the controversial but extremely practical technique of lifting the fret end and re-gluing it. I use my flush ground end nippers to lift the end of the fret, use a fret rocker to verify that after lifting it's just barely higher than the two adjacent frets, then put some thin superglue onto a sewing pin, and with the surface tension holding the superglue droplet in place, wick it right into the end of the fret. I'll apply 2 or 3 drops of glue in this manner just to be on the safe side. Another pass with the leveling beam, and the formerly low frets will be perfectly level with the rest. This preserves the most amount of fret material and saves a ton of work. The last step is understring leveling with the neck straight and the guitar fully set up and held in the playing position. The playing position under full string tension ensures the most accurate, real-world leveling possible, and I can test my work immediately by actually playing the guitar. I primarily use a full-length StewMac fret bar, but also use a short bar for inducing extra fall away and addressing specific problem areas. Obviously, I'm skipping ahead here to show this. Consider this a final touch used after traditional fret leveling to guarantee the lowest action possible without buzzing or choking out. Anyway, with the frets leveled, it's time to bevel the edges. You can do this freehand, or you can use one of the many available fret beveling files on the market. The frets being level allows the beveling tool to pass evenly over the frets, and some mylar film adhered to the bottom of the tool protects the fret tops. As far as the angle of the bevel goes, I have a 90 and 35 degree and a 10 and 25 degree. The shallower bevels will allow for wider string spacing, and I prefer them for that reason. With the edges beveled, we can move on to rounding them. The first tool I use here is the Gurion quarter round fret file. With the unique profile of its cutting edge, it works from the sides of the fret, quickly removing material and reshaping the fret ends to get them as round as you want. You can either use your dominant hand to file both sides, or go the ambidextrous route. It all comes down to personal preference, and whichever method gives you the best control over the rounding of the fret end. The end result is transforming this sharp, razor-edge fret end into something a bit more hand-friendly. However, there's still an edge on top of the fret. That's where the concave fret file comes in. While the quarter round file rounds the sides, the concave file rounds the top of the fret end. Using minimal pressure and letting the tool do the work, the concave file quickly softens and rounds the top edge of the fret, as you can see here in the before and after pictures. For even more refinement, you can use a smaller, smoother fret dressing file called the Fret Guru. Its fine cutting teeth and small profile allow for even more control, and using a similar motion as the quarter round file, it'll clean up leftover tool marks. Recrowning and polishing the frets is next. The fret tops are left flat by leveling and need to have a peak put back on them for proper intonation, clarity, and feel. I use the Summit Tools triangular file for stainless steel frets and a metal fingerboard guard. For the majority of the strokes, I only do push strokes to get the most power and control. Using the file only on the push stroke where it actually cuts results in much faster removal of material. I save the back and forth filing motion for when I'm nearing the peak of the crown and need to be more precise. Once the crown is established, double check it in good deflected light. The crown should be a bright, thin, straight line, while the sides of the frets will be dark. The high contrast when using deflected light makes for excellent visibility. With enough practice, a triangular file does a great job by itself, but if your crown is getting close and you don't want to accidentally go too far, the StewMac centered Z file works great. You can get the bulk of the work done quickly with the triangular file, then use the Z file to guarantee a perfect crown with no risk of filing it off. The centered Z file works very slowly and is best suited to touching up an almost finished crown to perfection. I polish the frets individually using a fretboard guard. I start with 320 grit paper, sanding until the marks from leveling and crowning are all out. Then I go through a range of StewMac fret erasers. 400 grit, 800 grit, 1200 grit, 2000 grit, 4000 grit, and 8000 grit. You can also use the fret erasers like a beveling file to smooth out and polish the fret ends. If you go through the shellac finish, simply reapply some shellac after you're done with the fret erasers. I finish with a little Blue Magic metal polish to bring the fret to a high luster. The frets are now looking good and finally ready to go. The glossy mirror finish goes away fairly quickly upon playing, but it does look great in pictures and videos. And even when the luster wears off a bit, they'll still feel glassy smooth for string bends and vibrato, and are easy enough to bring back to a gloss with a couple fret erasers and some metal polish when needed. With the frets done, we're ready to move on to the next step in the process. Tune into part 4 to see the installation of vintage Kluson style tuners. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.